There was almost no warning. On August 26th, a massive wall of water, mud, and rock suddenly tore through the Himalayas. Within minutes, roads disappeared, bridges collapsed, and hundreds of people were caught in the disaster. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're breaking down the timeline, the science, and the devastating aftermath of this Himalayan deluge.
Literally, there was almost no warning. That is the chilling reality of what occurred here. People were just going about their daily lives, and then, in an instant, they were caught entirely off guard by a terrifying, unstoppable natural force.
Part 1. A sudden wall of water. The August 26 disaster.
So where exactly did this happen? The disaster struck right along the Nepal-Tibet border, with the heaviest downstream impact felt around Nepal's Rasua district. For those of you familiar with the area, you know this isn't a place with vast, sprawling infrastructure. We're talking about remote, often isolated communities nestled deep in steep valleys. When a disaster strikes here, the geography itself becomes an immediate hurdle for survival.
And to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, listen to this. The Trishuli River violently shot up by about 9 meters in only 30 minutes. I mean, that is a 3-story building made of roaring water and mud appearing in just half an hour, instantly erasing homes and vital infrastructure that had been there for decades.
Part 2. What caused the deluge? Unraveling the mystery. Now, you might be wondering what caused such a massive flood. It wasn't simply heavy rain. Initially, early reports suggested an earthquake had triggered a massive collapse high in the mountains. And honestly, that makes sense, right? But the U.S. Geological Survey actually found something way more terrifying. They determined that the seismic signal didn't come from an earthquake causing the landslide. It came from the landslide itself. The collapse was so massive, so violently heavy, that it literally shook the earth.
Part 3. Anatomy of the avalanche. The chain reaction.
So, according to satellite analysis and local officials, here is the exact chain reaction. Step 1. High up in the Himalayas, a massive portion of a glacier and the surrounding rock simply collapsed. Step 2. This enormous ice and rock avalanche crashed directly into the Lende River. Step 3 is where the trap was really set. All that debris created a temporary, natural dam, completely blocking the river. And then, Step 4, that blockage inevitably gave way under the immense pressure.
Once that natural dam broke, a massive surge of water, mud, and rocks rushed violently downstream toward Nepal. And it's important to understand the physics here. This wasn't just water. It was a thick slurry of heavy, grinding rocks and mud, moving at incredible speeds. It acts like liquid sandpaper, combined with a battering ram, pulverizing everything in its path before anyone downstream even knew a dam had formed. Part 4. The devastating human toll. Destruction and rescue.
The physical destruction left behind was just absolute. We're talking at least 19 bridges and around 40 kilometers of roads that were either severely damaged or completely washed away. In a mountainous region like this, roads and bridges are literally your only lifelines. When they're gone, you render entire communities almost impossible to reach, which immediately complicated any hopes for a rapid rescue.
And that delay in access brings us to the devastating human cost. As of August 28, Nepal police reported 469 deaths in Nepal, with hundreds of people still missing. Over in Tibet, authorities reported 3 deaths and 558 people missing. Keep in mind, because rescue operations are still actively underway in these impossible conditions, these heartbreaking numbers may continue to change.
This disaster impacted a huge cross-section of people. Among the missing are local residents and regional workers, but also international tourists and trekkers. Actually, a lot of these folks were traveling through the region toward Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarvar when the disaster struck entirely without warning.
In response to this staggering crisis, the mobilization has been massive. More than 5,000 Nepali army and police personnel have been deployed into the disaster zone. 5,000! That number alone tells you the sheer scale of the desperation and the physical labor required to comb through the mud and debris to find survivors.
And because those 40 kilometers of roads are just gone, ground access is mostly impossible. So rescue teams are having to rely heavily on helicopters and drones to search for survivors from the sky and airdrop emergency supplies to communities that are completely cut off. It's a high-stakes, high-altitude logistical nightmare.
Part 5. The danger isn't over. Lingering threats.
You'd think the worst is over, but the danger isn't necessarily gone. The flood left behind a highly volatile landscape. All that debris has actually created new artificial lakes and blocked up waterways in parts of the region. This is raising serious fears that another sudden release of water from these unstable dams could cause even more flooding downstream. Ultimately, this disaster is a terrifying reminder of how quickly conditions can change up in the Himalayas. A river can look completely normal and peaceful one moment and become a roaring wall of destruction the very next, all because of something that happened miles away and thousands of feet above.
And beyond the geology and the logistics, there is the lingering human tragedy. For the families still waiting for any news on their loved ones, scanning the updates from those rescue workers, the disaster isn't over yet. The grief in these remote communities will continue long after the floodwaters are gone.
As the focus slowly shifts to recovery, a massive challenge looms. For Nepal, the big question now is not only how to rebuild from this, but how do we prepare for the next time there is almost no warning? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.